Welcome everybody. This is the SharePoint Patterns and Practices Special Interest Group. So that's what the SIG actually means in the title. And this is the General SharePoint Development. And in this course, we typically talk about SharePoint solution designs. We talk about CSAM, REST APIs, end-to-end solution architectures. We also started including now more and more, actually already a year ago, Flow and Microsoft Flow and Powerups in this course, because quite often as part of a larger solution, you actually take advantage of those as well. In this call, Jax who's responsible of the Flow and Powerups integration in SharePoint won't be joining us. In the future, we will always give him a 5 to 10 minute spot in this course, but he is currently on vacation. Apparently because the 4th of July is on next Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever it is, people are already on vacation in the US. I don't know how that works because I just don't understand. Anyway, but people are quite widely now on vacation in Redmond. Anyway, also on this course, we also do typically community demos or demos from the SharePoint engineering side. AKMSSP PNP community is a great place to talk about and ask questions from other people in the community. So that's in Microsoft Tech community, and then AKMSSP DevDocs, which is our official documentation. But the whole point of these calls is to have a interactive chat in Iron Window, which I can see that everybody is doing that really hectically already, which is good. And then also us to update from a SharePoint engineering side, to update you on the latest what is happening on the SharePoint engineering from a developer perspective. In some of these calls, there's always new groundbreaking stuff, and we actually, even in some of the calls, we've been showing demos before they were shown in SPC or in build. It always depends on the timing. It always depends on a week. Do we have something super groundbreaking to announce? This week, nothing really magical, but there's always something to talk about. Now, before we go to the actual engineering updates, quick pointer on the opportunities to participate on the community. Obviously, you can join on these calls and do just listen and watch the videos, and that's absolutely a valid option as well. Now, if you like, you can absolutely demo a solution or a technical pattern, and that means that just ping me, Patrick, or Bert, or whoever from the PNP core team, and let us know that you actually want to have a 10 to 15 minute spot in a call to demonstrate a sample, a technology, or whatever is in your mind. And we can talk about, if you have an idea which you could actually show, we can talk about how to make that, take best possible room for the 10 to 15 minutes on your idea. Today we'll have two demos, one from Olli Jääskeläinen from Sulava, and then one from Mikael Svensson from Puzzlepart as an example. You can always contribute in a GitHub, so please contribute by giving us issues, letting us know if something isn't working properly, or then contribute by submitting pull requests, which is a great way of contributing as well. All of the contributions are always getting acknowledged in our monthly communications. So in our dev blogs, you will get your name and optionally your company name mentioned as well if you have been a contributor within the previous month. But the most important thing is always to provide feedback. So don't, how would I put this nicely? Don't curse Microsoft in your company meetings and say like, they don't get it, they should be doing X and Y and Z, which is fine. You can always do that, but also let us know so we're able to actually address that whatever is wrong, or what is the gap, or what is the missing thing. And that's a super important thing. There's a lot of things and there's a lot of functionalities in SharePoint. And yes, we know that there are gaps which we need to address. Now, let's actually get moving on the actual agenda. So some general announcements and updates, some typical slides, which I always show here, but some new slides as well. There's a quick look on the roadmap, nothing really dramatical at this point, just making sure that everybody is up to date on the following steps, what's actually happening. Then we'll have a demo from Olli around building a site provisioning solution with Powerapps and Flow, a relatively typical scenario where you can actually take advantage of the flow. And I think in this case, we're actually then extending that with Azure Functions and doing additional stuff on that side as well. But I'll let Olli to actually explain that. Oh, thank you. And then the second demo is from Mikael Svensson, and this is around one of the PNP PowerShell commandlets and how to use that for search troubleshooting. So every now and then you might have challenges on SharePoint Online to know which of the items has been indexed and crawled on everything else, and this is a great commandlet for doing some troubleshooting on that. Written by Mikael Svensson, if I remember correctly as well. So it is a great way for Mikael to show what he has contributed as well. Now let's actually get on going on this one. So quick updates, obviously documentation, please remember AKMS SP DevDocs. We will have more than 800,000 views in June, even though we are heading to the summer vacation time, which is a pretty decent number. We didn't quite get to 1 million during this fiscal by end of June, but that's fine. We'll get to the 1 million in this views by Christmas, most likely, or by end of this calendar year. Really, and if you have any comments and everything else, those will be actually issues in the SP DevDocs issue list. But if you have any developer issues in general, please let us know. This is the way you can actually let us in SharePoint Engineering know that you have an issue which you can't explain. Some API is behaving badly, site design action isn't working, or something like that. Please let us know, and we'll reroute your issue or question or report to the right people, and it will get eventually processed. We have been able to cut quite a few critical things using this process as well in the past, so thank you for those people who've been contributing on this issue. So super valuable. And really the key reason why this issue list does exist is that if you have a developer-oriented issue and you report that using the SharePoint online support channels, they will actually tell you that, well, they don't have expertise to help you because it is a developer issue. If it's non-developer issue, then please use the right support channels, which is the SharePoint online support channel, to report that. So non-developer issues should not be reported using this issue list. Now, moving on kind of new slides. Those are the two slides which I always keep on the presentation. A reminder on the SharePoint Starter Kit. This has been really great to see the interest on this one, because we're obviously tracking the usage on the other side of the platform as well. So we're already seeing more than 400 tenants using, for example, the Tiles web part across the SharePoint Online within a matter of a few weeks, which is really nice achievement. We will keep on evolving this based on your input, based on your issue reports, based on your pull requests, and by Ignite, it is in our plans to have a self-service website where you can actually go and provision this without any PowerShell executions or anything like that. That design is still in my head, to be honest, so I need to still written it down and actually start working on making that website to work, but that should be released by Ignite. So if you join the PNP session in Ignite, you should see that one in practice. Now, other things, like you noticed, we have updated our invites. If you go to the AKMS SP PNP URL or the page, which is the community page, scroll down, there's the community call invites. There's 3 community calls. There's this one, there's the SPFX, SharePoint Framework community call, and the monthly community call, and you can easily get the stuff to your calendar from there. The reason why we needed to renew this was simply because the previous invites were by end of June, so all of the invites basically expired, and now the new invites are by end of June next year, so they will be valid for 1 year. Now, the other things, earlier today we released a new version of SharePoint Online, CSAM, so a new version of the Snookit. This wasn't really a dramatical thing, but there's few interesting properties, for example, in a tenant level, which are indicating something which is happening in the future. Some of the new properties which are in part of this release are not actually yet working because we haven't enabled the functionality within your tenants, but we're pushing already the season packages out. So there's, for example, a ways to filter which are the web parts which are visible within your tenant, and then there was a pretty interesting property in the in the web object, which is something related on mega menu. So whatever that is, and at this point I cannot actually explain what that will be because I cannot announce anything on that, but since the CSAM is part of the SharePoint Online PowerShell releases, we rather openly say what are the new properties using this documentation and blog post, rather than expecting you to find what's the new stuff without any documentation. So, but you can draw your conclusions out of these releases as we push them out. And obviously, if there's whenever there's something which we can talk about more on those things, we can always announce them in these community calls. Now, other stuff. SharePoint Framework 1.5.1 went live on Tuesday. Today is Thursday, yes, 2 days before, which isn't really related on the special interest group topic of today, but this is obviously a big thing to remember. If you're using SharePoint Framework, this 1.5.1 should address basically the regressions which we had in 1.5. So there was certain issues related on graph APIs and interfaces and all of that, and those have been now addressed in here. We are working on updating again our tutorials and our documentation, everything else, to double check that everything is up to date for this one. Now, other stuff. Something which went live yesterday, also in our documentation, is the migration API documentation. So if you're looking into, if you're an ISV or you're looking into doing a project related on migration, the migration API documentation is there. This is evolving still on a day-to-day basis. So the latest version of the of some of the XML examples were updated earlier today as well. But it's a great way of actually learning or seeing what's possible with a native out-of-the-box migration API. And obviously, if you're an ISV, this is what you should be using as the baseline, and then you build your own functionality on top of this. On the Ralph question, well, so how this works is that ShareGate and NaviPoint and all of these ISVs are basically taking advantage of our native APIs anyway, because these are the APIs which we offer out, and their applications are adding value on top of these, let's say, raw APIs. In our case, the native APIs, the native UIs and everything else are not super polished, and they're missing capabilities necessarily, and you need to do a lot of additional work on top of it. If you actually have a ISV application, it will make your life much easier. So they're taking advantage then on this on these APIs. Now, other stuff. This one we talked about 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to still raise it in quickly in here. So we are looking into increasing the baseline or versions of the PNP provisioning engine and PNP PowerShell and all of that. And last time there was nobody who was really jumping on this one, but I just want to double check that we're good with this one. What we're basically saying that after we increase the baseline version, you can no longer have an older version of SharePoint 2013 than September 2017 CU. Or you cannot have an older version of SharePoint 2016 than the feature back 2. So our assumption is that basically people should be at least in the September 2017 CU level, because this will then give us additional APIs which we can take advantage in the SharePoint PNP provisioning engine and inside of the PNP PowerShell. I don't see anybody jumping magically on the iron window saying, no, don't do that. So we're going to actually most likely do this by autumn. So I'm estimating that this should be done within the August timeframe or something like that. And SharePoint 2019 and NuGet package, see some NuGet packages. I actually created that one, first version of that one already this week. So it's coming out as part of potentially at the same time whenever the preview is coming out, which should happen relatively soon. I'm not going to say any estimate or days on that one. It should be still weeks, but not any more months. So which is pretty cool. So we won't be numerous months before we get the preview. It will be numerous weeks before we get the preview out for SharePoint 2019. Now, quick look on the roadmap on the SharePoint developer side. So obviously during spring and winter time we released a lot of stuff. In summertime we released already 1.5.1 and SharePoint Framework. The next big things will be around SharePoint Framework 1.6. Right now ETA for that one, ETA meaning estimated time of arrival. We can't promise that it will be by end of July, but we're looking into making that happen by end of July. We'll have then a native graph access from SharePoint Framework GA version, potentially Dialog Framework GA, global deployment of SharePoint Framework extensions. This is something which we demonstrated in Build and in SPC. Support for React 16, which isn't yet supported, preview of Socket.io APIs, and SharePoint 2019 support. So all of this should be done or should be part of the 1.6. And 1.7 is then the version which will be released in the Ignite timeframe with additional capabilities. So we're looking into having, for example, the Microsoft Teams tab development support as part of the 1.7. So that will not be as part of the 1.6. So we'll see how it goes. Thank you, Vincent. I just quickly looked on the IO window. And SharePoint Framework in SharePoint 2019. So we talked about this one last Thursday as well, just making sure that people are aware. Right now, the version which we've been internally testing is actually running SharePoint Framework 1.5, but there are some complications, and obviously by the time of preview, we will absolutely clarify you what are exactly the versions which will be supported and what you can do within the SharePoint 2019. It will, however, it will anyway support SharePoint Framework extensions and the modern experiences, modern pages, and all of that as part of the on-premises experience. You as an administrator can select are you going to have classic experience or the modern experience in SharePoint 2019. Now, let's actually move into the demo section. I talked 17 minutes and hopefully some new stuff and useful stuff, but let's actually go to the community demos and have a look on things in practice. So, Ollie?
All right.
Excellent. We have a connection. Good audio.
Yeah. All right, good. I will be sharing my screen now.
Excellent.
All right, just say when you can see.
Yep. Loading, 3 dots. Looks promising. And I can see what's available, and Ekel can see as well. Cool. I think we're good to go. Take it away.
All right. All right. Thank you. All right. My name is Olli Askelainen, and I'm Office Developer MVP and a Microsoft Certified Master for SharePoint, as Vesa and many of us. Also, I'm Office 365 and SharePoint User Group Finland organizer. We are having like monthly calls every Monday for 1 hour. Mainly the idea was given by this event we are currently in, and it works very nicely for us. I'm also working for like paid job is to be an architect at Sulava, and there's about 70-80 of us, and we are located in Finland. So, but today I'm talking about Powerups and Flow and Azure functions and things you would like to do if you want to customize how the site creation requests need to be customized. So you're not using the SharePoint Home and click Create Site, or you're not using the Teams and add new team from there. There are various reasons why that's not possible, and I have actually here a few of them. Like, for example, this is especially true in big organizations, but there is a need to collect additional data concerning that site or team or whatever we are provisioning. And this information can be used for different kind of purposes. For example, we can use that information to provision different kind of libraries and pages there, or we can use it later on let's say site governance. Let's say we could collect the information when will the site expire, like when the site is actually created. Also, there is other reason which is quite typical is that there are requests that need to be approved. I have actually a demo of this as well. Some requests don't need to be approved, but some do. For example, in this example, project. Creating a new project site will need to be approved, but team site doesn't, whatever the reason is. All right, and then there is other reasons are we want to control who can create sites. That is partially doable also using the site designs, because you can say that this site design is available for a certain set of users. All right, then there is quite typical one for me is this enforcing naming convention for both site names and URLs. And I have that one in place as well. So what does that actually mean? I have here a Powerup in this page. If this is my site directory, and I have added a Powerup web part here, and that's this create site functionality here. You can use it also on classic sites because you can embed an iframe to classic sites, and Powerups works nicely from iframe as well. How does this work? You basically select what kind of site do you need. Do you need a team site, for example? Then we collect some sort of information for the team site. And if you need, let's say, communication site, then you collect some different information there. Or if you want to create a project site, then you clicking project information or typing project information and select a template and click create site. I have the Powerup here as well. So what actually happens if I, for example, as you can see here, we have sort of like PowerPoint has these slides and Powerups has different screens. So this is site type screen, which basically is the selection, what do you want to do? And if I click here, there is this on select, navigate to project site screen, and it will take the user here. And in here, you can click Create Site, and what it does, it has this internal variable called site URL. If that is null, or it's blank, then we are going to actually set that value and use Powerups button, which is basically flow, which is run with these different values as parameters. I have the flow here. I edit this flow. So what actually goes on there? Here is a Powerups. It will provide some outputs for the sequential steps, and this is called as a function. And we are forming here a JSON request basically, and then this function will return some value, and we are going to get that value back to the Powerup. So if I try it in practice, this usually works. I type in some info here and click Create Site. It takes about, let's say, 20 to 50 seconds for this to actually work. Let's see. And if I click here, we are seeing that it is actually currently provisioning it. I won't go into detail on this one, but I will, if I have time, I will go into detail later on my Azure function. So it's done, which means that this has now, instead of create, it has launch. And if I click here, you can see that I have this project site created, and it's still doing something. Basically, it's applying the site design there. And I'm not going to actually wait. This is one. Do you other guys see this one quite a lot? It doesn't actually mean that this flow fails, but anyway,
it's a false positive.
Yeah, it is.
It's a positive negative, not a false positive or whatever it is. Anyway.
All right. Yeah. So this is basically one type of thing you can do. A good side here is that you can use this Powerup in Teams as well in SharePoint page, or you can use it from your mobile device, because you can use Powerups on your mobile device. So the same Powerup basically works in different kinds of situations, which is nice, but you don't need to redo it. But I will show another demo next, and this another demo is similar to the 2 weeks ago we had this same call, and there was a Powerups in SharePoint list, and I have this Teams order list here. And basically, when I add a new list item here, it will look a bit different because it has Powerups there. And for example, you can do some sort of like business logic. For example, here division is not a required field unless you select team type team, then you need to have division there. The reason why I have teams order is that my Azure function is actually creating teams first, and then it does some SharePoint PNP stuff for the SharePoint side of things. So basically, this is the way to collect those site requests, and I will not do it yet because I want to show what else is there. Here's a flow. It has actually two flows there. First one will take care that the team is created, but if I show you the actual flow, it has some other things there as well. So this starts when a new item is added to team's order list, and then it first checks if team type is project. And if so, it will actually start a approval process. It will send the approval to me and some information there. And if I select to say that no, we are not going to do it, it will simply terminate this flow, and the site will not be created, and the flow will be terminated with status cancelled. I could have here additional steps, and I should have there, like for example, updating the list item so that it was cancelled. But I just added this like 20 minutes before the show, which is probably a bad idea, but I tested once and it worked. Okay, but then there is the actual creation of the team, which is controlled by this HTTP call to Azure function with a similar set of parameters there, and then we are parsing the response from the Azure function and updating the list item based on that information. And here we are basically setting the status to whatever this Azure function returned, and it will return teams ready when it's done. And when the team is ready, we have another flow which will continue. So this flow is triggered when list item in the order list is modified. And what it will do, it will check if the list item has team ready as a status, and then it will call another Azure function, and this Azure function will do some other stuff. Basically, what it will do is it will put this team's URL address that we know by 10. It will put that on the navigation and remove the conversations link, which will point to Exchange side of things, and we don't want that in this case. So let's look at this in practice. We are going to start here. So I'm going to create an order. Let's hope this works, and let's say that it is a project. And let's pick a division and click Save. So at this point, let's see if we can go here. We can see that it is currently running this flow, and since it was actually a project site that we are ordering, it has started this approval process. So I'm going to go to Outlook, and here is I have a typo there, not my first. Let's wait a bit. So what would I like to do?
It's all fine. It's Finglish, so typos are fine.
Yeah. Approval. It sounds like also a bit like Swedish. All right. Let's say that I click Approve. And go back to my flow. It should pick that one up. Yes. So it was yes, and then it went forward, and it actually called this Azure function, and you can see that the Azure function should be doing this, but it is possible that this log stream is not up to the task, I will do. There are a few tricks you can try to do, like try to click between those and then at this log stream again. It is possible that we already did this. Yeah, it's already done and it moved forward. So it's going here. And it was, sorry, I was too slow on this one. But let me go through what it actually did. So this is the first one, create team. And what I do here is I basically, I'm using, where it is, connect Microsoft Teams. I'm using these cmdlets, and they are not perfect, but they do work. You need to use a credential. I have like a tenant admin credentials here. And what I'm going to do is I'm creating my own alias for the site, which is the email address and the SharePoint URL using this function. So it will do something like project or team on start of that. And then I'm going to create the team, which was this one. And then I'm going to add the creator user as an owner for the team. And if it's a team type of team, I am going to create a channel called announcement. And if it's a project kind of team, I'm going to create this weekly channel there. So, and I'm quickly going to show the other part. This is the other function, which is doing the SharePoint side of things. It's going to connect to SharePoint and access the group and find out what is the site URL there. And as you can see, I have this structure here that will try it 20 times because it's such a new Office 365 group or team, so that it might not have the site URL yet there. So I'm trying it 20 times and sleeping for 5 seconds while doing it. And then what I am going to do with that information, I'm going to remove the conversations link from the navigation and add Teams conversations link to the navigations using the Teams URL. So let's get back here. So this is the one we created, and as you can see, it has failed. Oh, wow.
No. Demo effect.
Yeah, I will do another one. Yeah, this is, let's go to SIG.
So now that the Skype has been working pretty reliably, so this is what happens next. So.
Yeah, I had to do it. Let's see if it works now. I'm just going to create this team, and this should be actually creating it. Yeah, it started to create it. It's forms this URL for it. Everything done here. So I will actually jump to this one, and it's now accessing the group information and modifying the navigation. It didn't take all that long. Let's see if it works.
Yeah, the modern site creation is so fast. It is.
Yeah. So nice. So I have the team here. I'm going to open it, and this is Teams. Yeah, this side. I decided to do Teams first, this one, because one of my customers was doing this, and I decided let's showcase it this way. But you can of course do it the other way around as well. So as you can see, I have this team here, and if I go here, you can see that I have announcements because this is team type of thing. And if I go to the second channel, and if I go to the files, you will see the SharePoint link soon. Open in SharePoint. And what I did there, I removed the conversations and added this Teams conversation. You can also see that my default site design had some things as well, so we have ideas list and whatnot there. But clicking this Teams conversation will get me back to the Teams side of things. All right, this is it. I'm done.
Cool. But that was really cool. So it's a combination, and this is a really great demo of showing basically Flow, Powerups, Azure Functions, and then PNP, the engine. There's two things what I wanted to actually talk about from here, because you're still sharing your screen. Thanks for that. Can you go to the Azure Functions sites and let's talk about the identity and authentication, because that's always an interesting discussion point as well.
Yeah, that's good. So in my example, I use this username and password here while doing the theme. That's the way. Because that's the way this Microsoft theme commandlets work.
Yes, because they do not support. There's no support for app only with Teams APIs or Teams PowerShell for time being. Yes. Yeah.
But in the SharePoint side of things, I did it like two different ways. First, I use like graph access, Get-PnP unified group, because I know the group ID, but I don't know the site URL. Actually, I do know the site URL because I know the alias, but anyway. So I use the group ID, which is in the list. Where is the list? There's the group ID. Alias is there as well. I would guess the URL from the alias, but
yeah. But that's not always actually the case, because you might have an existing, if you have a classic SharePoint site collection already taken by that URL, that would mean that your alias and the URL might be slightly different.
So this is using the graph application, and this is using the SharePoint authentication.
So in both cases, we are using the app only and secret, because SharePoint does support that, and obviously Azure AD supports app only access to the group level as well. And in here, you're using PNP PowerShell just for the convenience perspective. Obviously, there is a REST APIs, there's a CSM APIs, but the PNP PowerShell just abstracts so much behind it.
It would be possible to do a lot of things using just Flow and RESTful APIs, but it's kind of like a lot faster for me to actually use PowerShell.
Sure. And there's a good question from Tom, just to address that one. Is there a guidance when to use new PNP unified group or versus new PNP site? Answer is actually no. There's no guidance on that one, unfortunately. It's one of these gray area things. We are in engineering. I'm having a long-lasting discussions with the people who own the modern site creation on having then the app-only support also for REST APIs. Now, the new PNP site does not support app-only, and the new PNP unified group does support app-only. And that's because the underlying APIs have a different level of, let's say, support, which is extremely confusing for you, the community people. Why is some API supported for app only and some isn't? And for me, as an let's say, community member, as an field member, I absolutely agree on that. That should be fixed, and fighting for it. But one step at a time, we'll get it fixed. Cool. One thing maybe to notice and related on PowerShell, and let's move to Mikael in a second. Not sure if everybody has seen this, but apparently in the Azure Functions version 2.0, PowerShell is no longer an option. So officially, PowerShell is in preview in Azure Functions, and they're looking into now potentially dropping the classic PowerShell support. There is an ongoing GitHub issues on that one in the Azure Functions repo. If somebody can actually find that, please go and give them input as well. I was as horrified that could be my face, which Ralph is having as an icon over there as well, because using the PowerShell is so powerful.
Yeah, it is. This Mikael here, I'll just, because I've joined that discussion actually on the PowerShell part and Azure Functions. So what seems likely from the last response from the Azure team is that they will support PowerShell 4 in version 1 and probably move that to GA. And they're looking into supporting PowerShell with a .NET standard in version 2.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Because .NET Standard works a lot better, and the reason is because Azure Functions version 2 runs on Linux and not on Windows machines. That's the underlying thing, and it scales better, right?
Yes, because it scales better, it has better memory consumption and usage and clearance and garbage collection and all of that. So it kind of makes sense, but it was the original blog post was like freaking people out, and it's good. Mikael went there and started the discussion. If you, Mikael, have the link for that issue,
I'll see if I can dig it up. But since I'm starting my demo,
that was fast. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
There it is. There's always somebody on the call who jumps on these things. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool, but let's jump then to Mikael, because I think thank you, Olli, for a great demo, and I think it's a great end-to-end solution, and I really liked how polished your PowerApp UI was looking as well, because it shows how easily you can actually do that kind of a UI. Now, there's still some level of improvements which we as a Microsoft need to do for PowerApps and Flow deployment APIs, so making them, let's say, easily extract, deploy across different tenants and different ownership and everything else. But one step at a time, we'll get there. But Mikael, just take it away.
Thank you. Yeah. So my name is Mikael Svensson. I work for Puzzlepart. I am an Officer and Service MVP, also part of the PNP team. That's the introduction. So I figured I'll talk about a little bit about search troubleshooting. One of the questions I get a lot is, so how can you check the crawl log? I mean, everyone who's been working on premises have, if something's wrong, you go into the crawl log, say, okay, it's the item there, etc., etc. Support for the crawl log has actually been in SharePoint Online probably for a couple of years. I actually have a paid app in the App Store, which I can't say I've made a lot of money on it. So I figured, well, okay, I'll take that code and I'll move it into the PNP PowerShell commandlets, which was part of the June release. I haven't had time to blog about it yet, so I figured, well, this is a good opportunity to show off the crawl log commandlet. There's numerous reasons why things might not be searchable. Maybe you can't find it. I'm not saying that this will solve the issues, but it might give you at least more data when and if you start a support ticket with Microsoft. So the page I have up right now shows there's some boundaries. For example, if your Word document is over 64 megabytes, it's too large, should actually be downloaded and parsed. If it has too much content in it, etc. So basically, we have a command called Get-PnPSearchCrawlLog. So this is with the parameter log level error, and let's give me 10 items back. Boom, this gave me an error. And if you actually read this, they say you have to grant yourself access to the crawl log in the Search Admin Center. So if I go to the Search Admin, so you go to SharePoint Admin Center, you go to Search, and if you scroll all the way down, you have an entry there called Crawl Log Permissions. So now I will add myself.
Oh, Mikael, you actually mean that there's a descriptive error message? That's just
Yes, yes. I figured that was actually smart. So if you get an error, that's probably why you don't have access.
Yeah.
If you're running with app only, full access, and search, you don't need to add yourself there. So you can use this using app only permissions as well. Okay. So now I've added that. And if I rerun my command, I should actually get the last errors. So I figured I would just show a couple of errors. I have a document library here. So this is nothing special. That's just a regular Word document, which should work. We have a large document, 123 megabytes. I have an AIP protected document, and I have a random binary file, which I renamed to docx and uploaded. So if I try to search for one of these, so let's see if I paste my command. So I filter on the library, given the last 10 errors. So one thing to note is that the filters have to start with the URL. So it has to be the domain URL, and that's a limitation in the tenant part of the crawl log URL, so you don't have this limitation when you're working on premises. And this actually gives us a bit weird side effect when we're looking at user profiles, but I'll cover that in a little bit. So if I get my last entries for that library, and if I scroll up, so we see, okay, there's nothing special SIG call, success, and you see the item time and the crawl time. So you can actually see, you go, how long did it actually take before it got crawled. And here I actually have a binary file. So this is in Norwegian. This is my demo tenant in Norwegian. It says document format could not be run by the filter. So that's the I filter. So it couldn't recognize the file format, and that gave a warning. And then I have an AIP protector call, and says this element was partially analyzed. That means that it couldn't actually get the content, but it will still always get the metadata for these files. And then my large doc file says the file has reached the maximum download limit. Control that you can actually crawl this document. So this might be reasons if someone, well, I can't find, I search for this term, I know it's in my document, but I can't find it. So you could go here, you could check the crawl log and see what actually happens. And if we do, we can also check for user profiles. So if I do content source, so you have sites or user profiles. Sites is the default one. So ideally, I would actually take the URL for the user profile, but the URLs for the user profiles are actually crawled with the port number as part of the URL, so with :443. But what happens when this command runs, it instantiates the .NET URI object, which then strips the port number. So when that call goes over to the database, it can't actually match it. So when I do user profiles, I'll fetch the last 1,000, I think, by default. But if I do filter, so now I'll just do my name. So we'll actually do a post filter in the commandlet. So here I got the last entries for this. So you see here's my account. Last crawled at 1 o'clock today. And there's no item time actually for the user profiles. But they will actually help you see, well, so if there's a user profile, someone said that they updated it, they can't find it in search, you could check, well, find the profile, say, okay, when was the last crawled? That should help you out. There's also, so we have the log level, all error, success, and warning. And we have how many items do you want to return back, and you can also do a start date or end date if you know the time span and see if there's any entries, because the crawl log is actually quite big in number of entries. So that's actually my short demo.
Excellent. Any questions? Can you actually, Mikael, can you show where the PNP PowerShell is and how to actually get started with that? So, and where's the documentation for this as well?
Let's see.
If you can find it. Let's see if this is an ad hoc test.
You're putting me on the spot, right?
Yes.
So if we go to GitHub, SharePoint, PNP PowerShell, that's a good place to start.
So this is the actual source code for the PNP PowerShell.
Yeah, and if you go down here, so we have installation, and here it tells SharePoint Online, install module SharePoint PNP PowerShell Online. And when there's a new version, you can just run this, and it will overwrite with the latest versions.
And then the other one which I wanted to make sure that we actually cover as well, I'll kind of put that one in the IAM window. Can you click that one in IAM window? So this is, like I said, this is the GitHub location. This is where the source code is. There's instructions on getting started on that one as well. Obviously, all of the documentation is documented in the official documentation as well. So docs.microsoft.com, right next to SharePoint Online commandlets and server commandlets. And from here, we should be able to see your PowerShell commandlet documentation as well.
Yeah, so I guess, so let's see if we can find
on the reference, if you go to the reference on the left menu, that should do the trick.
Reference and SharePoint PNP, and then we should find Get-PnPSearchCrawlLog. CrawlLog. There it is, with the documentation.
And just in case, also adding that link on the Ion window for those who might be interested. So that's a great video from Erwin van Hoonen, who's the in quotes father of the PNP Power show. He always likes when we call him that. I would call him Grandpa, right? Just kidding. He's gonna love this recording. But that's a great video from Erwin on X showing how to get started in a video format as well. that started a good IAM thread immediately. Now I'm going to flip back on the slides. So we're trying to, on this course, we've been having lately and in the past quite a lot of problems if we have multiple demos in this course or 3 demos in this course. So we're trying to get back on the track of having only 2 demos, potentially a quick one from engineering or something extra, but just making sure that we actually have some time for the Q&A and just making sure that we don't actually go over the time, because we know that people typically book the hour and then they need to move to another topic after that. Now, any ad hoc questions at this point on the topics which we covered from Olli or Mikael, or for anything related on SharePoint, because this is now your great time. And we're trying to, like I said, we're trying to have this 10 minutes in every single call for any random questions. So I'm watching Ion window if there's any good questions. Russell is asking who's the mother. Let's not actually go to those details. And like also mentioned in the Ion window, so all of these things require demos. These calls are recorded, and the recording is always in the YouTube, with typically in 24 hours after the call. Any API to list the site collections, Basically, Vincent is asking to list all of the site collections, regardless are they old, classic, or whatnot, or are they group associated or not. And there isn't absolutely an intention to provide a proper APIs for getting access on everything what you have. Now, right now, that's slightly confusing. You need to do multiple API calls to get access on the graph, list of groups and list of classic sites and list of communication sites, and that's not an optimal situation. So we're trying to figure out how to get that modified. So absolutely in the pipeline. Issue of React latest version. So React 15 is currently supported. React 16 version is going to be supported on 1.6 currently the plan, if that's related on that one from Ralph. Any updates on the top 10 user voice entries for SharePoint Dev? Not, unfortunately, so nothing we can actually talk about that much. We're looking into I know that somehow magically I'm aware on what's happening inside of the engineering. Oh, that's because I'm from engineering. So we're looking into having the taxonomy API covered at some point. There is work being done on that one, and the timeline is unclear. That is the #1 entry in the user voice. There's other important stuff like SharePoint Framework library is one of the requests that is actually potentially already in 1.6 version of SharePoint Framework. So we're working on getting the SharePoint Framework library component support as well. What else? There's a single page application request support in user voice, and I think #2 on the list. Again, I'm not going to open the user voice ad hoc right now, but that's something which are looking potentially in some level actually get covered as part of the Microsoft Teams tab model. So whenever we get the Microsoft Teams tab model implemented, it will in certain way address the single page application scenario as well in certain way. But all of those details, what it actually means and timelines and everything else, we can't actually share that for time being. Roadmap for support of SharePoint Dev. That's an interesting question. Probably not gonna, the native out-of-the-box support, SharePoint Online support simply does not have resources and time to keep up with the speed of innovation what we're having right now on the developer side, and that's really the challenge on the support side, and that's why we're trying to now solve that using the issue list, and that has been slightly struggling. We had some technical issues on getting those items replicated, but we're now really back in track on getting all of the latest issues always triaged and if it's a critical issue, addressing that ASAP. I do have a following up triage call coming in 2 hours related on the issues. Indexed property bag for modern site. Good idea. What's the alternative store or site level properties? This is from Gautam. Seth. So the property bag update is a good idea, but the modern sites by default, you do not have permissions to update the property bag because the no script is enabled. The no script setting is enabled for the modern sites. Now, technically, it is a great idea how to store the site level properties except the no script requirement. In the longer run, we're looking into solving this one by exposing an APIs which will give you an opportunity of storing site-level custom metadata. But again, the timeline is unclear. We're looking into making that happen regardless if the no script is enabled or not. The reason why the property bag is blocked when the no script is enabled is due to the fact that in the property bag there are certain behavioral settings as well, which can actually cause an additional challenges for your sites. And with SharePoint Framework, we want to be super strict that we don't expose, let's say, scripting injection options or anything like that unless explicitly tenant administrator has given the permissions to use JavaScript on the sites. I'm going to scan quickly. Ability to customize site information panel is, well, there's a constant all the time discussions on that one. How do we want to do that? Right now, not actually in the plans, in the short-term plans. But what you could do for the site information panel is that whenever the site is created or first-time person goes to the site, in the application customizer, you'll check if you have the needed metadata already stored somewhere. If not, you're going to ask the metadata from the people who are coming to the site. That's one way of handling the metadata collection. Just scanning the ideas. Any idea when we can add a default value on compliance asset ID on a list? No idea on that point. We are making investments on that side because we're seeing all the time right now API changes on the compliant asset handling, but I can't say that I'm not that closely involved in that API work. And that's it for now. We're actually hitting pretty much the hour. Would this be the first time pretty much on this year we would be able to close the meeting on time? That would be unheard of. But I think it's better, and there's no really burning questions, right, unless there's one more thing. Yes, I can't believe I quickly show something. And we haven't had a Skype crash either, so this looks pretty promising. So, all good. But thank you, Olli. Thank you, Mikael, for joining. Like I said, we will keep 2 demos in future in those calls. And if one demo is from engineering, then we'll drop the community demo or the extra demo from there in the pipeline. Just making sure that we always have that end 10 to 8 minutes extra for Q&A if there's any critical things to ask. And please use the social media, GitHub channels to actually let us know if there's any things or gaps which we need to address. And we are trying to address them, but also from a timing perspective, please be patient. Things unfortunately do not happen with the snap of a finger that much. But thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for joining this call. Thank you, Olli, Mikael, one more time, and we'll be absolutely in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.